Throwaway account, because Ryan knows my main. I have been with my boyfriend for almost 3 years, living together for 2.5 of those years, along with my daughter Lily from a previous relationship. I need advice about what happened with my 30th birthday because I don't know if I'm overreacting or if this is a genuine issue. For the past month, Ryan had been hinting at having special plans for my birthday. He'd casually mentioned things like, I shouldn't worry about planning anything because he had it covered. I was actually excited since 30 feels like a milestone birthday, and honestly, the past few years have been pretty rough. I thought maybe he was planning something special to mark the occasion. Some background is probably needed here. Ryan and I first connected during probably the lowest point in my life. I had lost my nursing job after reporting medication theft by a senior colleague. I was suddenly unemployed, fighting a wrongful termination case, and struggling financially as a single mom. Not exactly my finest hour. Ryan was honestly amazing during that period. He offered stability when I desperately needed it, even helped with legal fees for my employment case. I don't want to sound ungrateful because I'm not. Ryan has been there for me through some seriously dark times. That's partly why this birthday situation has me so confused. So yesterday was the big 3-0. I woke up and Ryan had already left for his construction management job without saying anything. No card, no note, no happy birthday text, nothing. I figured maybe he was planning something for later and didn't want to spoil the surprise. Around noon, my brother Jacob called to ask what time he should come over for my birthday dinner. He mentioned that Ryan had asked him to handle my birthday plans because he was swamped at work. This was the first I'd heard of any plans, and it stung a bit that Ryan had just delegated everything to my brother without telling me. When evening rolled around, Jacob showed up with takeout food he'd ordered himself, a cake he purchased, and presents from himself and our parents. It became painfully obvious that Ryan hadn't contributed anything to the celebration beyond asking my brother to handle it. I tried to stay positive for Lily's sake, but it was getting harder by the minute. While my brother and daughter sang happy birthday to me, Ryan just sat on the couch watching a football game. He'd occasionally glance over, but never actually joined in or said anything. He was physically present, but mentally checked out. After Jacob left around 8, I found Ryan in the kitchen making a sandwich just for himself. We had plenty of ingredients, but he didn't offer to make one for me or even ask if I wanted anything. Maybe that sounds petty. Lily sensed something was wrong. She dragged her toy tea set to the living room and announced she was hosting a special birthday tea party for Mommy. The real impact came when Ryan stepped over her whole tea party setup without acknowledging it at all. He just went back to the couch with his sandwich while I tried not to cry at my daughter's sweet gesture. Lily looked confused, but carried on pouring imaginary tea and telling me how special birthdays are. I finally worked up the courage to ask him why he hadn't acknowledged my birthday at all. His response floored me. Your brother handled it, didn't he? Why are you trying to make me feel like a shit boyfriend? He then pointed out that he's been working overtime to pay for our upcoming vacation and accused me of being childish for caring so much about birthdays at my age. I sat there wondering if I was indeed being ridiculous for feeling hurt. The thing is, I always make Ryan's birthdays special. I bake his favorite cake, decorate our apartment, and save up to buy thoughtful gifts despite my tighter budget. Last year, I spent weeks planning a surprise party with all his friends. I don't expect the same level of effort, but some acknowledgement would have been nice. The conversation ended with him saying he was tired of walking on eggshells around my expectations, and then he went to bed early. I sat alone in the living room for hours, trying to figure out if I was actually being unreasonable. The next day at the hospital where I now work, my nursing colleagues surprised me with a small cake and card during our lunch break. I completely broke down crying. They were the only ones besides family who had acknowledged my birthday at all. My reaction was probably disproportionate, but something about that small kindness from coworkers when my partner of 3 years couldn't be bothered just broke something in me. I've been replaying our conversation in my head constantly. Am I wrong to expect some small acknowledgement on my birthday? Ryan keeps saying I'm making too big a deal out of it, and part of me wonders if he's right. Maybe at 30 I should be beyond caring about birthdays. The way he delegated everything to my brother without telling me, then got defensive when I expressed hurt feelings, it doesn't sit right. but I also feel like I owe him so much for supporting me through my wrongful termination case. I hate confrontation, and I'm worried about making this into a bigger issue than it needs to be. But I also can't shake the feeling that if someone really cares about you, they at least acknowledge your birthday, especially when they specifically told you they had plans for it. I haven't told anyone else about how deeply this hurt me. What do you think I should do? Am I overreacting to what might just be a thoughtless mistake, or is this part of a bigger problem? Now for the first update. Update. Wow, I did not expect my post to blow up like that. Seriously, rip my inbox. Thank you all for the supportive comments and advice. It really helped me work up the courage to confront Ryan again about the birthday situation. It's been about 5 days since my original post, and I wanted to update you all on what's happened since then. For context, Ryan and I barely talk for more than 5 to 10 minutes most days, despite living together. Sad, I know. He's typically absorbed in work, watching sports, or scrolling through his phone. The past few days have been even more distant than usual, with him basically acting like nothing happened while I've been dealing with it. I think I should clarify something many of you picked up on that I didn't fully explain in my original post. Ryan was there for me during a very difficult time. Not just losing my nursing job and fighting that wrongful termination case, but also dealing with Lily's severe respiratory infection that required hospitalization during that same time. He stepped up in ways that honestly helped us when I was struggling, which is partly why this birthday thing affected me so much. The difference between then and now, Ryan, is significant. I've been reading through all your comments. Thank you again for taking the time. And so many of you pointed out the same red flags that my gut was already trying to tell me about. The comment that really hit home was from someone who wrote, "When someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time." That's been on my mind for days. Yesterday, while Lily was at preschool, I finally worked up the courage to have a serious talk with Ryan. I approached him on the couch. I started by explaining that I felt hurt and unvalued by his lack of acknowledgement of my birthday, especially after he specifically told me he had plans. At first, Ryan seemed receptive. He put down his phone and said he understood why I was upset. He even apologized for dropping the ball on my birthday. For about 2 minutes, I thought we might actually have a productive conversation about expectations and feelings. The conversation shifted when Ryan suggested that I'm still struggling with insecurity from my previous relationship with Lily's father, who had cheated on me while I was pregnant. Several of you actually guessed this part of my backstory in the comments. Yes, Lily's dad was a real piece of work who left when I was 7 months pregnant after I discovered his affair with a coworker. I tried explaining to Ryan that this isn't about insecurity, but about feeling seen and appreciated in our relationship. That's when things really took a turn. His entire demeanor changed, and he started listing all the ways he supports us financially. Paying the larger share of rent, 60-40 split based on our incomes, buying groceries, and covering Lily's dance classes. Does that not count for anything? He asked. When I pointed out that emotional support matters too, Ryan stood up abruptly, saying he can't win and that I'm never satisfied despite everything he does. Then came the kicker. Ryan brought up the money he loaned me during my employment dispute, approximately $3,000 that I'm still paying back from my settlement. Slower than I'd like, but I'm trying. He actually asked if I'd be this picky about his behavior if I had to support myself completely on my own. I completely froze when he mentioned the money. Many of you commented that financial control is a common manipulation tactic, and you were right. The shame I felt in that moment was overwhelming. Like I don't have the right to expect basic consideration because I still owe him money. Edit. To clarify, we have no formal agreement about the money he loaned me. I've been paying him back about $100 to $150 per month as I can afford it, but there's no written payment plan. He's never brought it up in an argument before this. The argument took an unexpected turn when Ryan revealed he deliberately didn't get me anything because my brother had told him months ago about planning a surprise party for my actual birthday weekend, still 2 days away. According to Ryan, he was keeping this information secret to preserve the surprise. I was completely blindsided by this information. If this was true, why wouldn't he have just told me on my actual birthday that he had something planned for the weekend? Why let me feel forgotten? Ryan then accused me of ruining the surprise with my neediness and stormed out, saying he needs to rethink some things about our relationship. The door slam was so loud that our neighbor texted to ask if everything was okay. After he left, I immediately called my brother, who confirmed he is indeed planning a small gathering at his house this weekend. However, he was confused by Ryan's version of events. Jacob said he mentioned the gathering to Ryan about 2 weeks ago, but never told Ryan it was meant to replace a gift or acknowledgement from him. My brother actually seemed concerned when I told him what Ryan had said. While on the phone with Jacob, I could hear Lily's little voice in the background asking if we were still having my special party. My brother assured her we absolutely were, and it would be the best party ever. The more I reflect on this whole situation and read your comments, the more I realize this isn't just about a forgotten birthday. It's about a pattern of behavior that I've been excusing and minimizing because I feel indebted to Ryan for supporting us during my lowest point. Several of you pointed this out, and you were absolutely right. I've spent the last couple days discreetly looking at my finances to see if I could afford to move out with Lily if needed. I'm still on a tight budget as a hospital nurse, still building my career back up after that whole wrongful termination mess. But I think with some serious budgeting and maybe picking up an extra shift or two, we could manage a small 2-bedroom apartment in a less expensive area of town. Ryan came home late last night and has been acting like nothing happened. He's sleeping in the guest room without explanation, and we've barely spoken 2 words to each other since the argument. The surprise party is tomorrow, and I honestly have no idea how that's going to go. Part of me wants to just cancel the whole thing, but I know Lily and my family are excited about it. I feel like I'm seeing a side of Ryan I can't ignore anymore, but I'm honestly terrified of what the future holds for Lily and me if this relationship ends. I've saved some of your comments about financial independence and recognizing emotional manipulation to read when I'm feeling uncertain. Thank you all for helping me see things more clearly, even if the view isn't pretty. Now for the second update. Update 2. I honestly didn't think I'd be back here so soon with another post, but after what happened at my surprise party, I needed to process everything with you all. As always, thanks for the support on my previous posts. So, after our big argument about my birthday, Ryan and I were basically living as awkward roommates. He'd been sleeping in the guest room without explanation, and we barely spoke beyond, "Can you pass the remote?" and "Did you pay the internet bill?" Super fun household vibes, let me tell you. The tension was there, but at least he wasn't bringing up the money I owed him again. The day of my brother's surprise gathering finally arrived. Part of me was dreading it because of the awkwardness with Ryan, but another part was looking forward to being around people who actually seemed to care about celebrating my birthday. That morning, Ryan actually acknowledged me when he told me he'd meet me at Jacob's place later because he needed to pick something up first. I hate to admit it, but that gave me some hope. Maybe he'd realized how hurtful his behavior had been and was finally getting me a gift. Stupid, I know. I arrived at my brother's house around 3 p.m. with Lily because Jacob had promised her there would be chocolate cake. Jacob had decorations, some balloons and a happy 30th banner, but it was more acknowledgement than I'd gotten from my boyfriend of nearly 3 years. My parents were there along with a few close friends and some of Jacob's friends that I've known forever. Everyone was super sweet, and for the first time since my actual birthday, I felt special. Jacob had prepared all my favorite foods, and my parents brought this gorgeous cake that definitely wasn't from a grocery store. Almost 2 hours into the party, Ryan finally showed up. No gift, no card, nothing but a casual hey to everyone before immediately heading to grab a beer. He barely made eye contact with me before gravitating toward Jacob's friends who were discussing some sports thing in the corner. I tried not to let it bother me and focused on enjoying time with people who were actually happy to be celebrating with me. About an hour later, I was grabbing more wine from the kitchen when I overheard Ryan talking to Jacob's friend Sam about some football game. I wasn't really paying attention until I heard Ryan say, "Yeah, I got tickets to the championship game next month. It was expensive, but it's a great opportunity." I froze because the championship game he was talking about was the same weekend we were supposed to take our vacation. The vacation he'd been using as an excuse for why he couldn't do anything for my birthday because he was working overtime to pay for it. Sam must have realized the conflict because he asked, "Wait, isn't that the weekend you guys were planning that beach trip with Lily?" Ryan laughed and said, She'll understand. It's a big game. Besides, we can always go to the beach another time. This whole time, he'd been making me feel guilty for being upset about my birthday because he was supposedly working so hard to give us a nice vacation. And now I find out he's already spent that money on football tickets without even discussing it with me. I stepped into their conversation and asked, "So what happened to our vacation plans?" My voice was steady considering the rage inside me. Ryan was surprised. He clearly hadn't expected me to overhear their conversation. "Hey, we can talk about this later, okay?" he said, trying to steer the conversation in another direction. "No, I'd like to know now," I persisted. "When were you planning to tell me that you canceled our family vacation for a football game? The same vacation you've been using as an excuse for why you couldn't acknowledge my birthday." The room got uncomfortably quiet. I could feel everyone's eyes on us, but at that point, I didn't care. Ryan's expression hardened, and he said in a low voice, "You really want to do this here? At your party? This is exactly what I mean about your expectations." My brother Jacob tried to intervene. "Hey Ryan, maybe you should step outside for a minute and cool off." But Ryan wasn't having it. "No, I think everyone should hear this," he said, louder. "Nothing I do is ever enough." In front of everyone, my parents, my friends, my daughter, Ryan started complaining about how I'm never grateful for what he provides. He brought up the money he loaned me during my employment dispute and suggested I've taken advantage of his generosity while becoming increasingly demanding. "I pay for most of our expenses," he announced to the room. "I supported her when she lost her job. I'm the reason she and Lily have a roof over their heads, and I can't even buy football tickets." My mom interrupted him. "Ryan," she said firmly, "discussing financial arrangements at a birthday gathering is inappropriate. I think you need to take a step back." Several of my friends looked uncomfortable, and Jacob was angry at Ryan. Lily had gone to play with my friend's kid in the backyard, so she didn't witness this display. Ryan grabbed his jacket off the chair. "I need some air," he said. Then he looked at me and added, "Don't expect me home tonight," before walking out the door. After he left, there was silence until my friend Claire said, "Well, that was special," which broke the tension and made everyone laugh nervously. My family and friends rallied around me immediately, telling me I deserved better and that Ryan was way out of line. My dad even offered to go have a talk with Ryan. I tried to salvage what was left of the party, but it was pretty much ruined. Jacob kept refilling my wine glass and telling me that Ryan had always given him weird vibes. My mom hugged me about 15 times and whispered that I should call her tomorrow to talk about options. By the time I got home with Lily, I was emotionally drained. I tucked her in and sat on the couch staring at my phone, which started buzzing with texts from Ryan around midnight. His messages accused me of humiliating him at the party and making him look bad in front of everyone. He said he was staying at his friend Dave's place until I get my priorities straight. There were several more texts, each getting progressively more defensive, with the final one saying I should be grateful he puts up with my emotional baggage at all. I didn't respond. What could I possibly say at that point? The man who couldn't be bothered to even get me a birthday card was now playing the victim because I called him out on lying about our vacation. Being upset about your 30th birthday being completely ignored is now considered baggage? Okay then. I spent most of the night looking at our finances and trying to figure out if I could afford a place for Lily and me on my own. My settlement money from the wrongful termination case is almost gone after paying legal fees and catching up on bills, but I've been picking up extra shifts at the hospital lately. It wouldn't be easy, but I think we could manage a small 2-bedroom apartment in a different neighborhood. The next morning, I called my brother and talked to him about potentially staying with him temporarily while I figure things out. He immediately offered his spare room and even said he could help me look for apartments. It's been 2 days since the party, and Ryan still hasn't come home. He sent a few more texts, alternating between being angry that I embarrassed him and saying we need to talk rationally about our relationship. I'm not sure what there is to talk about anymore. I keep thinking about all your comments on my previous posts about financial control and emotional manipulation, and I'm seeing our entire relationship in a different light now. I'm trying to stay positive despite everything going on with Ryan, but I'm also terrified about starting over. Thank you all for sticking with me through this journey. Your advice and support have meant more than you know. Now for the final update. Final update. My boyfriend didn't acknowledge my birthday, and things have finally reached their conclusion. First, thank you all so much for your support through this whole saga. Your comments and messages have been a lifeline during one of the most confusing periods of my life. It's been 2 weeks since the disaster at my brother's party, and I've been taking some time to really process everything. After Ryan stormed out that night, he stayed at his friend Dave's place for 3 days, occasionally sending texts that alternated between angry accusations and half-hearted attempts at reconciliation. I didn't respond to any of them. Instead, I used that time to really evaluate our relationship with clear eyes for maybe the first time. My brother Jacob came over the day after the party to help me sort through things. We sat at the kitchen table with coffee while Lily played in her room, and he asked me point blank, "Has Ryan always made you feel like you owe him for everything?" That question hit me. I realized Ryan had been using that $3,000 loan as a way to keep me in check for almost 2 years. I spent those 3 Ryan-free days organizing my finances, researching apartments in my budget, and making plans. I even went to HR at the hospital to ask about single-parent assistance programs. My parents stopped by too and offered to help with the deposit on a new place. When Ryan finally came home on the 4th day, he walked in, tossed his keys on the counter, and asked if there was anything good for dinner. No apology, no acknowledgement of the scene he'd caused at the party. Nothing. I was sitting in the living room when he arrived, and I calmly told him we needed to talk when he had a moment. He sighed dramatically, but sat down on the opposite end of the couch. Before I could even start, he launched into this whole spiel about how my family has always judged him and how I embarrassed him at the party. I let him talk for about 2 minutes before I held up my hand to stop him. "I need to say something without being interrupted," I said. For once, he actually stayed quiet. I laid out everything I'd been realizing, how he used financial support as leverage, how he dismissed my feelings as neediness, how he'd consistently prioritized his wants over our needs. I explained that I'd spent nearly 3 years feeling constantly around him, afraid to upset the person who had rescued me during my lowest point. When I finally said I thought we should separate, his entire demeanor changed. The defensiveness suddenly transformed into panic. "Where am I supposed to go if you take Lily and leave?" he asked. That's when I clarified that I would be the one moving out, since the apartment lease was primarily in his name. The look of genuine surprise on his face told me everything I needed to know. The possibility of me actually leaving had never occurred to him. He'd assumed his financial position gave him all the power. Ryan switched tactics immediately. He started talking about starting fresh and how he could do better if I gave him another chance. But when I asked what exactly doing better would look like, all he could offer were vague promises about being more thoughtful and communicating better. Then came the moment I'd been preparing for. Ryan brought up the money I still owed him, implying I was in no position financially to leave. I reached into my bag and pulled out a document I'd prepared, a formal payment plan outlining exactly how I would repay the remaining $1,500 in monthly installments over the next 18 months, complete with dates and amounts. The look on his face when I handed him that paper. That's when he realized this wasn't an emotional threat or a moment of anger. I had actually thought this through. "Jacob has offered to let Lily and me stay with him until I find a place I can afford," I told him. "I've already spoken to Lily's preschool about the transition, and my parents are helping with moving expenses." Ryan just sat there, staring at the payment plan. His face cycled through shock, anger, and finally resignation. "You've really thought this through, haven't you?" he asked quietly. I nodded, and we sat in silence for a moment before he finally admitted something I hadn't expected. "I've never been comfortable with the responsibilities of being a father figure to Lily," he said. "I thought I could handle it, but I can't." That admission actually gave me a strange sense of closure. At least he was finally being honest about something. And we spent the next few days working out logistics. I started packing our things while Ryan mostly stayed out of the way, occasionally helping with the heavier items, but mostly keeping to himself. He signed the payment plan agreement without argument. There were a few moments when I caught him looking sad, but they seemed more like mourning the convenience of our arrangement than actually missing us. Last weekend, Jacob and my dad came over with a U-Haul, and we loaded up everything Lily and I would need. Ryan was surprisingly civil throughout the process, even helping to disassemble Lily's bed and carry it down to the truck. When everything was packed, He awkwardly handed me a card with "sorry" written on it and $300 in cash inside. "To help with expenses," he said. I thanked him, but still added it as a credit on our payment plan. It's been 5 days since we moved into Jacob's place, and honestly, I already feel lighter. Lily keeps asking when we're going home, which breaks my heart a little, but she's also enjoying all the extra attention from her uncle. I've already toured 3 potential apartments, and I have a good feeling about the last one. The rent is manageable with my nursing salary, especially now that I've picked up a few extra shifts. Ryan texted yesterday, asking if he could see Lily this weekend. I'm still figuring out how to navigate co-parenting with someone who isn't actually her parent, but has been in her life for almost 3 years. For now, I've agreed to a short visit at a neutral location, with me present the entire time. A quick note: many commenters pointed out that financial control is often the first sign of a more controlling relationship, and suggested I check my credit report. You all were spot on. I found a credit card inquiry I didn't recognize from 6 months ago. When confronted, Ryan admitted he was just checking options for our vacation and never actually opened an account. I've now frozen my credit and changed all my passwords. The most surprising part of this whole experience has been realizing how much I had dimmed my own light to avoid making Ryan uncomfortable. In just these few days of freedom, I've reconnected with friends I'd lost touch with, signed up for a nursing certification program I'd been putting off, and even started looking into homeownership programs for single parents. I know there will be challenges ahead, and rebuilding financially will take time. But for the first time in years, I'm making decisions based on what's best for Lily and me, not out of fear of upsetting someone else or losing their support. I've learned so much about standing up for myself through this whole birthday debacle. Thank you all for helping me find my voice again and for witnessing this chapter of my life. Edit. Several people have asked about Lily's biological father. He's not in the picture at all and has terminated his parental rights. Also, to clarify, Ryan is not on our lease, as I originally thought. We're both on it, but the landlord confirmed I could have taken over the lease if I wanted to. I chose to leave anyway because the apartment never felt right. Starting fresh somewhere new feels right for this next chapter of our lives.